Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Agency Insider Show. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Brett Farmiloe, founder and CEO of Feature.com, a groundbreaking digital PR platform. Brett is an expert in public relations, marketing, and the evolving role of AI in this industry. We'll be exploring Brett's journey, insights on the future of digital marketing, and practical tips for businesses looking to make the most of media placement. It's going to be a valued packed talk, so let's dive right in. Welcome, Brett. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. So let's start at the beginning, Brett. You founded Feature.com, which has been making waves in the PR industry. Can you tell us about the journey of creating Feature.com and the unique problem it aims to solve?
Sure. So just a backstory on me, I ran a digital marketing company for 10 years. We basically started a digital marketing company because we ranked on page one of Google for the term digital marketing company. So I had no intentions to ever start a digital marketing company, but I was getting so many inbound calls that decided to actually start an agency and scaled that to the point where we had we serviced about 500 small businesses over the course of 10 years. And the biggest problem that each one of those small businesses had was building visibility and credibility online. And so the thing that I was noticing is that every small business owner has an abundance of expertise to share, but nowhere to really share it. And so we created the platform as a way to get our clients placed in the media. In order to actually do that effectively, we needed to open it up for others to share their thoughts and perspectives as well, so we could create these articles. And so the platform started to scale faster than the agency, sold the agency at the end of December of 21, and I've been focused on growing Featured for the last 3 years. And so the problem is really twofold. It's how do you build exposure for experts, and how do you deliver really high quality content to publishers? And so by featuring voices and essentially asking questions from those publishers over to experts, that's essentially what we do, is we make that connection between experts and publishers to create content.
Okay, and what differentiates Feature.com from other PR platforms in the market?
Yeah, I think that you would have to ask our customers, and from what we typically hear, it's just easy to use and pretty intuitive. And so I think that the user experience is pretty straightforward, especially for folks coming from an SEO or search engine optimization background. I think that if you look at the founding origins of Feature.com, it originated from a search engine optimization agency. And so a lot of the features that you're going to see on there speak to that persona. And so for our paid plans, you could essentially see whether a placement will result in a do follow or a no follow or an unlinked opportunity. You're able to prioritize based off of the authoritativeness of each website, which is filtered around domain rating from Ahrefs. So there's quite a few different features that make it really easy to use, and time to value is around 4 minutes in terms of being able to sign up, submit an answer, and ultimately get placed into an article.
Wow, that's fast. Now, how do you measure the impact of Featured for businesses using it?
I think that would be a question for them. I think that we've seen a variety of different ways to measure the ROI on using our platform. A lot of folks will measure it in terms of what's the increase in domain rating. Others will look at increase in organic search traffic. Some others will look at, how does this actually translate over to leads and sales? And then others are, there's a lot of agencies that use the platform as well. And so I think that they're really looking at it from a perspective of, is this profitable? Is this a profitable service that is scalable, repeatable, easy to deliver on, and ultimately our clients happy with it? And so I think that there's a lot of different qualitative and quantitative metrics to measure ROI.
Okay. Now, I'm sure with the new Google updates, emphasizing more on brands, Google emphasizing more on brands, I mean, it's helping Feature.com grow more, because that's what the brand mentions will do to the brand.
It's funny, like I ran an SEO agency for 10 years and now we're doing this, and there's always a new Google update. And I think that the biggest thing to keep in mind is just to, do the right thing, like be helpful and create great content that readers ultimately want to consume. Right. Because I think that's Google's ultimate mission, is to, what was the mission statement? It was like to make stuff universally accessible and useful to a reader. So I think that if you keep that in mind, then you don't have to worry so much about all the Google updates. But to your point, expertise, experience, authority, trust, EEAT. I think that's been a central pivot from over the last 7-8 years with search, and we're seeing more and more importance placed on identity in terms of who is actually saying this information. Can you attribute it back to an actual person or brand? Because that's going to differentiate it from any kind of AI generated content. So I think that the importance of sharing your knowledge and sharing your expertise online is important from a search engine perspective, from an expert perspective, and from a publisher side of things.
Okay. Now let's talk about the power of media and expert positioning. In one of your in your Blue TF live interview, you discussed the power of media. How do you see the media landscape evolving, especially for businesses trying to establish themselves as thought leaders?
Yeah, I think that it's been pretty. I mean, here we are at the end of 2024 at the time of recording this, and looking ahead at 2025. This has been a really crazy year for publishing in terms of the landscape. AI and the evolving nature of a zero-click search experience is really transforming the landscape. And for someone who's looking to establish their thought leadership and visibility online, that translates in a variety of different ways. We've seen people use featured to essentially land these placements on, sites like Inc.com and Fast Company and Forbes and Fortune and Entrepreneur, and those logos immediately go up on a LinkedIn profile in the background to say as featured on XYZ. So I think that there's still a need to validate yourself and your expertise in your business. And how that translates depends on the expert. Are you going to share it on a LinkedIn profile? Are you going to incorporate it into your sales collateral? Are you going to put it in your email subject line or signature? So there's a lot of different ways that you could leverage that. But the bottom line is that there's an unmet need to build exposure and establish credibility online.
Right. Now, you have worked with a diverse range of clients, from trenchless pipelining companies to horticulturists. How do you help niche businesses find their voice in the right platform to share their expertise?
That's a really good question, and that goes back to why I founded the platform. Because, as you mentioned, we were working with a trenchless pipelining company. We were working with a criminal defense lawyer out in Seattle, and even like an eyelash extension supply company here in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, how do you bring out the expertise and knowledge from each one of those businesses and make it useful for readers? And so, I think it starts with asking the right question and finding an outlet that wants to feature that expertise. And so that's essentially what Featured has made really easy for publishers and for experts, where we're suggesting questions that publishers can ask. They'll essentially accept those questions, and then that goes into the ecosystem where now we can invite vetted experts to answer that question, take their insights, put it into an article, and get that published onto a publisher site. So in order to, everyone has expertise about something, it's just a matter of how do you unlock that and make it useful for readers and publishers.
Okay. Now let's talk about the importance of backlinks in SEO and SEO in this context. Of course, no conversation can be without the backlinks, because eventually as an SEO, first thing you think is the backlinks. So how does feature.com balance the need of businesses for SEO benefits with maintaining the integrity of the content for publishers?
Yeah, we put it all on the publisher. So if you look at Google's link scheme guidelines and you look at, it's basically like you have to you can't put it in a contract or an agreement that a publisher must link to someone, because that's against, you essentially be considered a link scheme in that scenario. So what we've done as a platform is we've given publishers full control over whether they link to experts, how they link to experts in terms of do you make it a do follow or a no follow, or just have an unlinked. And then we make that transparent for the expert who's answering featured, so that they can manage expectations. If they were to submit an answer, will this likely result in a do follow link or a no follow link? And so I think that that's the best way to balance it, because you essentially have three different players in this. You have publishers, you've got the experts who want those backlinks, and you have a search engine who's kind of sitting on the sidelines seeing if this is kosher for everyone. So as a platform, we've made some really conscious decisions, everything from the business model down to the tools and the transparency that we operate with. And so I think that's the right stance, because you can't just sell links. That's pretty against what Google says.
That's right. Now, how does question like how does feature.com is different when it comes to HARO for that matter? Say, because HARO, they journalists are asking question here, people are submitting answers. So is it some similarity or is this not at all similar?
Yeah, a lot of our customers would say that this is like a Help Reporter Out 2.0. So the ease and transparency, where if you look at Help Reporter Out, which they announced a couple weeks ago that they were discontinuing operations permanently. They've shut it down. They rebranded over to Connectively and then have taken that out of the market. What they were traditionally doing was putting all of their opportunities into an email newsletter, blasting that out 3 times a day without any kind of personalization. And it was just grouped and sent out to everyone, which is really, really effective. People love Help Reporter Out. There's a lot of nostalgia for it, but it was founded in 2008. And so technology's evolved a lot since then. And so if you look at how Featured approaches it, we looked at Help Reporter Out and said, well, there's a lot of noise in the platform and in the inbox. So how do you include personalization so that you're asked the right question at the right time to bring out the right insight? So what that does is it produces a lot higher success rate in terms of being able to submit an answer and actually get that placed. So there's a lot less wasted knowledge sharing, I would say, and a lot more use in terms of connecting that expert with a publisher.
Okay, so let's say your model is when you subscribe and people can submit unlimited answers to the questions, which are of course picked by publishers. So is there a guarantee for how many publishers will pick or nothing?
Yeah, so the business model, it's a freemium B2B SaaS business model where you could answer up to 3 questions a month at no cost. And then if you want to answer unlimited questions, then you could subscribe to our Pro plan, which starts at $49 a month. It's $39 a month if you pay annually. And then there's a business plan where you could answer unlimited questions, but also submit byline articles where you could author a full-length piece and get that placed in publications, as well as conduct interview profiles. So essentially say, here's the topic I want to be interviewed about, here's the publication I want to be interviewed in, and then conduct a 10-question interview to get an interview profile placed. And so there's 3 different content types that we're operating with and essentially 3 different plans. And so there's no guarantee that you're going to be placed in an article. It's strictly if you answer a question that speaks to your expertise and experience, then there's a pretty high likelihood that that'll be valuable for a publisher to consider.
So now with the advent of AI, has it become a problem where I take a $39 or a $49 subscription and use ChatGPT to create unlimited answers? So my point is, has the quality been an issue lately where publisher will say, or is there a quality check you introduced because of this?
Yeah, so we actually tried very early to police everything and to try to be like an AI filter, and found pretty quickly that a lot of the tools are inaccurate and we were having a lot of false positives and a lot of false negatives. And so ultimately what we decided as a platform was 2 things. One was pushing the responsibility over to a publisher, because we saw that the publishers that we work with, each of them had different AI policies and different ways to essentially filter and decide whether or not something was AI generated. So we wanted to essentially push that responsibility onto a publisher. And then as a platform, we took the stance that if someone's willing to attach their name, image, and likeness to a quote, then we're essentially saying, hey, this person's reputation is on the line. There's a digital signature that's attached to this answer. So that's validation enough for us, for them to be able to submit. And then it's ultimately on the publisher to decide whether or not to feature that in an article.
Okay. So besides paying $39 or $49, there are no other fees involved.
Correct. There is, and then one other thing I would add to the business model and then the flexibility with plans is we introduced credits, which is a pay-as-you-go model. So if you wanted to, for example, not subscribe and just answer a couple extra questions, you could purchase credits and submit those extra answers, as well as if you wanted to try out like our byline article or interview profile features, you could purchase credits and then submit for those as well.
But I mean, of course, at the end of the day, anybody would know what are the chances of getting published. I mean, 1 in 10, 2 in 10, provided everything else, the content is valuable. What are the chances, or what is the success rate you see?
Yeah, I think it really just depends on how you're using the platform. So as long as you're answering questions that pertain to your expertise and you're really, really well qualified for that, your success rate is going to be really, really high. What we do see is users who sometimes will come in and answer every question, regardless of whether or not they have expertise or not. And so that really skews the success rate depending on how you're using the platform. What I would say is that people who are coming in and really sticking to what they know without having to use ChatGPT or without having to do a Google search, those answers are really going to be really high quality, and publishers have an unmet need to feature those insights versus someone coming in and downloading every question that's on Featured, putting it all into ChatGPT, putting it all into that submission process. Your success rate is going to be generally pretty low.
And typically, how much time does it take once somebody answers the question to get published?
So once a question, it really depends on the publisher. There's so much variety within our ecosystem where we work with over 1,000 publishers, and each one of them has different publishing timelines. So for example, one of the prominent business publications that we work with will typically have like a really long lead time where we'll turn in the article. We will then wait probably about 1 to 2 months before it actually goes live, but it's part of their overall content calendar. Versus another really prominent business publication that we work with, it's like next day. Someone will submit, and the article will go live the next day featuring their quote. So it's anywhere from 1 day to a couple months. And so I think that's, it's really hard to answer. And I would probably say on average, it's about a 2 to 3 week turnaround.
All right. That's fair enough, because obviously everybody would have a different editorial system, right?
Yep.
Right. Now, what do you think? How should agencies balance the focus between obtaining high quality placement versus a high quantity of placements?
I think it depends on the agency and the client, like if and what the client goals are and how placements factor into that overall marketing strategy. So if someone's looking to say like, hey, we're in this really competitive, industry where we need placements to outrank a competitor for a particular keyword, what's the gap between where that client is and where that next position is, and how many links or placements do you ultimately estimate that you're going to need, and how does that impact using a platform like ours and others to get those placements? So I think it all just goes back to the individualized marketing strategy, what you actually need and what you're in it for.
Right. Now, is it possible for you to share an example where Featured helped a client achieve exceptional SEO results?
Yeah, when we were doing it for ourselves and our own agency, we had one particular client, like very early on, we 25x their organic traffic within 12 months. So they went from I don't know what the number was. I think that when we started, they were probably at like a couple thousand organic search visits a month, and then within 12 months, we were able to 25x it. And so it was pretty significant. Their domain rating jumped significantly. There was quite a few really prominent placements that we were able to get for that client. But since then, we haven't done any kind of agency work. So I think that I'd be interested to hear from our customers on what their success stories look like.
So on a mix, or do you have more agencies or do you have more direct clients? I mean, on your platform?
Yeah, right now we've got over 50,000 experts who are answering questions on Featured, and there's a good mix of those who come from agencies, both PR firms and SEO agencies, and some digital marketing firms who are starting to add on Featured as a service that they're offering to clients, which is really interesting. Like, I think that's a great overall trend that you're seeing in this space. You're seeing like everyone from like a social media management firm latching on and saying, okay, we're going to develop thought leadership as a service. We're going to develop executive brand building as a service. And they're using Featured as a way to deliver that service in a really predictable way. So I think that's a really cool trend that we're seeing as well.
Okay. Now does a small business, for example, a plumber or a HVAC guys will come to you, or it's?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those HVAC guys are in high demand. Interior designers, the horticulturists, the makeup artists, everybody. So I think that it's really interesting because you're seeing publishers and their business models adapt in a way where they're focusing on some really niche topics. And to focus on those really niche topics, they need really niche experts. And so we've developed a pretty healthy base of experts around virtually every different industry vertical, including the people who are, plumbing for a living, the electricians, so we really focused initially on business topics, human resources, technology, finance, marketing, things like that. And over the last year or so, we've really gravitated out into some different verticals.
Okay. Now let's talk about navigating AI in marketing and PR. AI is reshaping, of course, every industry, including PR and marketing. How do you see AI being integrated into content creation and media outreach?
I think the pretty obvious one is a trend that I saw when I was running my agency really early was we were using the platform, I think it was called Jarvis, which is now Jasper AI. And so really early, like when I was running that agency, I recognized like, hey, this is a really good way to generate content to reduce costs. And I think that that's really started to gravitate as ChatGPT and other platforms have been adopted. So I think that's like the natural tendency for content creation to just be fully automated by AI. We've tried to go in the opposite direction, but where we really value human generated content. And so I think that as AI gets adopted, then human content just becomes more and more important. So it's really around how do you have AI like support and power a lot of those workflows so that real humans can share their expertise, add value on top of what AI can generate, so that ultimately readers and publishers can benefit.
Okay. Now, what are the potential challenges agencies face with AI tool like ChatGPT in PR?
Well, I think with any service, AI has the potential to enhance and disrupt. So whether it's a marketing agency, whether it's a professional bookkeeping services firm, AI can do a lot of the things that traditionally you had to do manually. So for agencies, it just means a hard look at some of those standard operating procedures and figuring out where within those workflows AI can support, and also looking at it from a client perspective to say, okay, if I'm a client, I'm thinking about this as well. I'm thinking about what are my expenses? Okay, I've got this expense that I pay out to my services firms. Is there an AI tool that could help me do that in place of the agency? And so I think that for any agency owner who's running a business, it's smart to look at AI as a way to enhance your existing workflows, and then look at it from a client's lens to say, how is the client thinking about AI disrupting the service that I offer, and how do I make that service stronger? So whether that's enhancing relationships, whether that's innovating on the services that you're offering, I think that it's a hard audit at what you're looking at and what the client's looking at.
Okay. Now, do you think AI will replace certain roles in PR, or will it primarily serve as a complement to human creativity?
I would be an optimist and side towards the latter. I think that it like everyone says it's pretty early, and it really is. And
Right.
so I think that you need a human in the loop no matter what. So you're probably able to do more with less. And I think that's a general thing that we've observed. For example, Featured is a team of 7 right now. So if this were not 2024, 2025, and this was like 2018, our team would probably have to be 35 people. So it would be substantially different if we didn't have AI supporting a lot of our workflows. And I think the same would be true, for a PR firm where you just are able to be more efficient no matter what your role. So I think that's one thing that I would keep in mind.
Okay. Now, what do you think will be what ethical considerations should agencies keep in mind when using AI for media strategies?
Well, I would just keep all the stakeholders in mind. When you're thinking about media strategies, think about each stakeholder that's involved in that, starting with the end reader. Like if you're using AI to generate any sort of media initiative, how is this going to impact, the person who's consuming it? So I think that ethical considerations need to start there and need to extend out to your partners. So beyond a reader, who are your partners in that equation? Are you working with a publisher? Think about them and their business. What are their AI policies? How does your initiative fit in with that AI policy? And then ultimately, like, what are your own core values at your company? How is it's really exciting to adopt a new technology and to realize some of the benefits. But ultimately, how does this align with some of the characteristics within your own organization? And I think that if you're keeping all of those stakeholders in mind, from the end reader, from your partners, from your employees, then you ultimately arrive at the right answer.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about startup insights and your personal experiences. Of course, you have been involved in the startup ecosystem, and including your experience with the startup AZ, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So what would you say are the key elements of successful startup culture?
Grit, persistence. There's a picture right in front of me that it's I look at it often and then I look away really quickly because it's a picture of a desert. And I'm here in Arizona. The picture's of a desert. There's also like black lava that has taken over this desert. And then in the very background there's this mountain. All right. So when I look at it, my interpretation of it is the startup journey. It's like you've gotten your shoes stripped off you. You've got to walk barefoot over this lava, over across a hot desert, across many different miles, only to be able to earn the right to get to the mountain. And then you have to climb the mountain after having taken that journey. And so like startup life is very much one of persistence, grit, pain, agony, tears, sweat, all of those different things. And if you're able to get through that initial tough stage, then you earn the right to now climb a mountain and try to make it. So there's nothing fun about it. Like it's very, very hard. And nothing fun about it. There's highs and lows every hour. Like, so I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I think that, my general professional purpose is to start companies and to lead a team through, that experience and to, keep up the vision, mission, and so that everyone's got the endurance to make it.
Okay. Okay. What advice do you have for founders looking to build a scalable business in tech space?
Find your first customer, find your second customer, find your third customer. So I think one of my favorite frameworks is the business model canvas by Steve Blank. And the business model canvas has, I think it's like seven or nine different quadrants, but the two most important quadrants are right in the middle, the value proposition, and on the far, I think, right-hand side, customer segments. And so what you have to do as a startup founder is you have to do everything that you can and as quickly as you can and as efficiently as you can to find product market fit. And what product market fit is this alignment between your value proposition and your customer. And so you're constantly refining what's the value proposition? What am I offering that is very valuable to who? And so that constantly changes of you might have the right value proposition, but the wrong customer, or you might have the right customer, but the wrong value proposition. And so constantly what you're doing as a startup founder is finding someone who's willing to pay for that value proposition and seeing if that market is big enough to build a real like tech startup type of business. So a lot of what I've done as a founder is, I talk with customers and I try to validate that that's the right customer segment for us and that we've got the right value proposition to ultimately fill an unmet need that is different and novel enough that it could withstand competition and see if there's a way to build a viable business from that. So for anyone who's looking to start a tech startup, I would encourage you to look at the business model canvas, fill out your value proposition, fill out your customer segment, find someone in that customer segment who's willing to pay for that value proposition repeatedly and listen to everything that first customer has to say so that you can find your second one.
Okay. And what role does community play in the success of startups, particularly in the tech and PR industries?
I think that our entire marketing is built on word of mouth and success of our customers. So in terms of community, what we typically see is people will be featured and they will share where they've been featured. And there's a network effect where if they share that, then there's one or two other people from within their network who might get excited about it and check out featured and sign up. And we see a lot of growth from the community success. So for us, it's making sure that success is maintained, that essentially we have a healthy balance between our marketplace of supply and demand to make sure that there's positive sentiment that's surrounding featured, and the community is the growth and the engine that really drives our business forward.
Okay. Now, how has your leadership style evolved since founding Featured?
I don't know. That's a good question for probably a couple of our employees who were with us when I was running my agency and who have transitioned over to the tech startup that we have today. I think the biggest thing that I've evolved into and how I've matured as a leader is getting more clarity around what a leader actually needs to do. So what a leader really needs to do, or what I would consider it, is three responsibilities. It's people, it's strategy, and it's capital. make sure that you have the right people to execute on the strategy, and make sure you have enough money to do it. And so
Right.
I think that like having that level of focus helps me be a better leader, because I know if there's anything outside of those three areas, it's probably not my responsibility, and I should probably delegate it or just get it out of my system altogether. So I think that if you were to look at how I was managing an agency, typically when you're running an agency, you are doing like everything. You
Right.
are writing the content, you're getting the placements, you're doing the accounting, you're doing all of this different stuff. And so if you really want to grow and scale the business, you need to ultimately find someone who could take those responsibilities so that you could focus on what you need to focus on. And that's ultimately what led me to sell the agency. I hired basically like a COO, someone who could manage the operations and define the SOPs and do all of those different things that I was not good at doing and didn't have the patience to do. And 1 year later, after making that hire, I was able to sell the business and use that year to essentially exit the business without exiting the business. And by exiting the business, focusing on the things that weren't the day-to-day type of client operations, which allowed the business to really like breathe and thrive on its own. So it's a really good question, but I think that it just comes from having a lot of confidence in what you should focus on.
So how many people were there when you sold your agency?
Yeah, we had about 15, 20 employees at the time. So yeah, pretty small team, but small and mighty team.
Okay. And so when you were decided to sell your agency, do you had feature.com in your mind, or it just
Yeah. So what happened was I, had hired the director of operations. I had hit like that 10-year milestone of running the agency, and everyone that I talked to, man, when that 10-year mark comes, you're a little fatigued and tired,
okay.
and ready for a new challenge. And so for me, that new challenge actually came by attending an event. It was called Venture Madness here in Arizona. It's like a big startup pitch competition. And there was about 16 founders who went up, gave a 5-minute pitch about their business, talked about the problem, talked about the solution, talked about how it works, their pricing, their funding, competition, everything. And I sat there all day and was like, you know what? I feel like this is for me. Like, I feel like I could be one of the people who is up on that stage, giving a pitch competition, running a tech startup. And it felt like a very exciting thing that was a natural next step, because we had already built the platform internally. And so it was really just getting the confidence to take that next step. So bottom line, sold the company. And then about 3 months after selling the company, I was presenting at Venture Madness and, and doing all of that. So like, yeah, like I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a really good challenge.
Okay. Now, let's talk about advice for marketers and business owners. Based on our experience, what advice would you give to marketers or business owners looking to leverage media and expert positioning to grow their business?
What we typically see people on Featured are, they will start off with their free plan, and they will start off with the agency owner answering those 3 questions. They'll then gravitate to a subscription, and they'll answer unlimited questions for the agency owner. And then if they have success, they will build a service around it and bring all of their clients on. And so what I would say, whether it's with Featured or any other service, is find a way to trial it, find a way to make it work for your agency, and learn all the ins and outs of everything, and then scale it to your clients. And because if you could find success for yourself, then you could probably find success for your clients, and you could probably dramatically scale and grow your business. So the thing that I would also say is, and the thing that I love to say, is that there's more marketing agencies and coffee shops in the US where we're at. There's over, I think, 70,000 marketing agencies. And I think that that's like way too much. I think that and I would be very and I'm sure every agency owner feels this, but winning clients is probably tougher and tougher, and is only going to get tougher and tougher. So I would constantly try to think about, how do we best service clients, and what does a client mean to us? Like, what's the perfect client? How do we really hone in on that one client and replicate that success? And I would innovate on the service suite that I'm offering to that client, so that you do everything that you can to keep a client that's been with you for 2 years how do you keep them for 2 more? And the only way that you're going to keep them for 2 more is to keep it fresh, keep it thrilling, innovate on the different service offering, because doing more of the same is not going to keep a client.
Right. And especially when it comes to AI, and of course, every second day, anybody's client get pitched by jillions of other agencies. I think that's something is important.
Jillions of other agencies.
My agency itself get pitched for so many agencies to outsource the work to them. It gets funny all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Now, in one of your interviews, you mentioned the importance of activating employees to become part of company's marketing effort. So can you elaborate on this strategy and how businesses can implement it effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always said that probably one of the best marketing opportunities for companies is to enlist their employees as marketing ambassadors, because in today's day and age, everyone has a voice and everyone has a personal brand, and part of their personal brand is the company that they work at. And so are you able to essentially help them leverage and develop their own thought leadership to benefit the thought leadership and the brand of your company? Featured's a really good example of that, where anyone can go on, share their expertise, and essentially get attribution back to the company. And so at Featured, we've got 3 software engineers, we've got a product manager, we've got a community manager, and a partnerships manager. All of us, I'm encouraging to answer questions on Featured that speak to our expertise, because if there's a software engineering related question, I'm not the best person to answer that. Like right. one of our software engineers is. And so if they answer that question and they get placed, there's a benefit for Featured and for the employee, because they're featured in the article, they've developed their thought leadership up a little bit, but there may or may not be a link back to our company website just by virtue of saying it's okay to share your thoughts and to share your expertise. So I think Featured is a really good example of where I think marketing is headed, where every employee at your company is similar to the comment about how community empowers the growth of a company. I think your community exists with your customers, but it also exists within your own employee base. So if I were to wish anything on, an enterprise level customer, like for example, like Microsoft, for example, probably every day there's hundreds of employees that wake up at Microsoft thinking that thought leadership is their job. And Microsoft, I think, has done a really good job to enable those employees to feel like thought leaders. And I think that you're going to see a lot of other companies follow suit, where everyone has thoughts to share around a particular.
Okay. So quick fire rounds. Let's lighten things up with a quick fire round. I'll ask you a rapid question and you can you should give me the first thing that comes in your mind.
All right, let's do it, man. There's a lot of questions already, so yeah. No,
We're just coming towards the end of the show.
I know it's the end of your day. It's the beginning of mine. So here, man, I got a little coffee. Let's go.
Yeah, you can take a sip if you like.
It's all good, man.
Okay, let's do it. What's the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Put on a costume and be it, which is basically like Halloween. Like Halloween is like a 4-day holiday in the US, at least when you're in college, and you could dress up and be something. And if that costume kind of failed that night, you can put on a new costume the next day and be that. And so I think that when you're looking at careers and even like your business model canvas, put on a costume and fully own that costume. And if it doesn't fit, man, put on a different costume and try that. And I think that's a good way to evolve and with careers and business.
Okay. One book every marketer should read.
The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. I think that's a pretty good one. We'll stop with that one. Okay.
Your favorite tool or app for productivity?
Featured.com. No.
For productivity.
Featured is a great way to be productive in PR, but probably ChatGPT.
Okay. Biggest PR myth you would like to debunk?
Man, that's a lot of myths that it's hard.
Okay.
I would say like, just to expand on that, like, a lot of people look at PR as this black box, and I think that it's not. Like, especially if you look at a platform like ours that tries to make it a little bit easier, I think that the playing field's getting level.
Okay. And what's next on your professional bucket list?
Grow Featured. I mean, we're 3 years in, and I think that there's still the mountain to climb with it. So just leading the team up the mountain.
Okay. Brett, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts or messages you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I would say that, if anyone's looking to get in touch, feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, Brett Farmiloe, or drop me an email, brett@featured.com.
Okay.
Love to talk with customers, hear from customers, especially ones that are new to the platform and have some perspectives. So, help us grow featured.com by providing your feedback.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brett, for joining us and sharing your incredible insights and bearing with so many of my questions.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely going to need this coffee now. So I appreciate you having me on, and I hope everyone got something out of it.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into the Agency Insider Show. Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes featuring industry leaders. Until next time, keep innovating and excelling in your agency journey. Take care. Thank you.